Well, hey there, sweet peas. Welcome to the Friendless Holiday Extravaganza, little guy episode to wrap up the year. So I'm flying out to Nova Scotia next week to spend the holidays with my family for the first time in a really long time. So my plan is to just take the rest of November off and rest and recharge and try to get a bit of a head start for 2024. There is so much I want to do with the show in the coming year, and before I can do that, I need to replenish my energy. Last couple of months, I have been all over the map emotionally, and I'm feeling like things are starting to settle down. Back in September, I had the bright idea to pre-record just a whole boatload of interviews and then slowly release them over the next few months. I still have literally a couple months worth in the backlog and will absolutely be getting to all of them in the new year. Just that for now, I need a break. The weekly schedule is a lot on the old nervous system, especially with everything else going on in my life. So I genuinely have no idea how other people do it, like how people maintain week in, week out, year in, year out, these routines. It's baffling to me. It feels very unhealthy. But before I take my leave for 2023, I thought I'd do a little wrap-up retrospective as well as answer a couple of questions that listeners have asked over the last couple of weeks. So, 2023, it was a banner year for mental health and unhealth. Probably the biggest thing to come out of the year is that I am right now just over 2 months sober after spending much of the summer and fall drunk and or high. I was on a really bad downward spiral and was in need of a major change. Every day that I have spent sober since then, I say a little thank you to the friend who pulled me aside at Thanksgiving and told me that they were worried about me. The irony, of course, being that when they said this, we were both just gooned out of our minds, and having it called out that it was only me who had a problem feels a little bit not totally true. But all that aside, I genuinely cannot thank them enough for the courage that it took to say something. It's really scary to confront a friend or someone who you love. It takes a really special kind of courage, a special kind of love to see someone who is clearly in pain and to offer them what amounts to essentially a moment of clarity. The thing is, as I've learned and as I, continually reiterate to others, is that you can't save someone who can't save themselves. This friend, they didn't offer me a plan. They didn't force me into anything. They just gave me the truth, and then they let me take control of myself. And, I know that doesn't work for everyone, but it did work for me, and I am grateful every day for that opportunity. It's something I've really been sitting with a lot recently is, this reconciliation of the fact that you can't change other people. You can only change yourself. And if people fall away from you as you change, that's fine. It doesn't mean either of you are bad people. It just means you don't click right now. And if you change and they come along with you, I feel like that only strengthens those bonds and really reinforces that you have found the people who need to be in your life at that time. And realizing that it is okay to release connections, that you don't have to hold on forever. You can let things go, and neither of you are going to die. It can be sad, and sadness is a really beautiful, it's a really beautiful emotion, I guess is the word I was searching for. It's not something to fear. Sadness teaches us that we had something truly genuine, and even though it's gone, it doesn't mean those memories don't exist anymore. I've been doing some really deep exploration on myself, on how I show up in the world, what my blind spots are, where I've hurt others. I've fucked up a lot. This year was probably some of my biggest fumbles in a lot of respects. In the earliest stages of my sobriety, I was an absolute mess. I collapsed. It felt like nothing was going to work out. I was alone, and anywhere I turned, all I could do was just make things worse. I alienated friends. I lost connections on a seemingly daily basis. I became really, like they say in The Simpsons, I became isolated and weird. But I kept living, and that was the key, is that I just kept going. I didn't let it defeat me. I didn't fall back. I kept moving. And that, in the end, saved me. And I know 2 months, I feel incredibly proud of that. And I also know that I'm going to be alive for a lot longer than 2 months. So in the grand scheme of things, it may end up being a drop in the bucket. But as I always teach my students at work, anything you want to celebrate is worth celebrating. And even though I'm not where I want to be eventually, I know that I have the time to get there in the time that it'll take. So I'm really proud of the journey I have accomplished so far, and I'm really excited for the next stages of that continuing adventure. Kind of doubling back to this idea of saving people, like I've been loving my sobriety to the point where I just want to scream it from my balcony and just beg everyone that I love to come along with me. I see some of the people in my life who I love and I care so much for, and I see them struggle with their own relationship with, substances and alcohol. And it breaks my heart. And the sadness and the reality is that I can't save them. I can't make someone want to get sober. I'm on my journey and everyone else is on theirs. And there's been moments where, I've wanted to kind of pull people in my life along with me. And I've realized that just isn't possible. I'm here if they need me. And I also recognize that I can only help myself at the end of the day. It's a really strange and difficult reality to reconcile. We all need help, and we all also need to do it on our own. It's this really tough cycle that I by no means have mastered. I mean, I'm barely even on the path, but I am walking it, and it fucking rules. And while I can't change other people and I can't make them want something, what I can reiterate here is say that I am here, and I would love to help anyone who's, starting their own journey. Beyond that, I find myself being hesitant to go much further into details about other parts of my year. If I've learned anything from having a couple TikToks go semi-viral or whatever it is you call it anymore these days, I have no idea. Nuance doesn't exist online. You can make any statement you want, and no matter how many angles you consider, no matter how measured you think you're being, someone's going to find a way to pick it apart and make sure that you know that you are a monster. And that's okay, because, one thing that I was unpacking with my therapist the other day is this idea of internalized truth and internalized reality is always going to be subjective. No two people are ever going to experience anything the same way. And so the ideas of intent and impact, it's a tightrope walk. You can know what you meant, and if you know in your heart that harm and maliciousness was not intended, and someone else chooses to be impacted by it, while you bear a form of responsibility to that, you also can't live your entire life hypervigilant to the needs of others. You still have to express your personal truth. And if that doesn't gel with someone else's reality, and if that doesn't gel with someone else's perspective, it's on them to engage in the conversation. If there's something that they don't agree with, they are welcome to discuss it, or they are welcome to move on. I think it's Ram Dass who says, do you want to be right or do you want to be righteous? And I lately have been trying really hard to embody that and to really reflect on that idea that, I can know what is right for me. And that is, actually, that has to be an irrevocable truth, because I have to love myself fiercely in order to protect myself from the world. And if that doesn't gel with someone else, it's not my job to change them. It's my job to embody my truth. And if someone agrees with that, come on in. If someone doesn't agree with it but wants to discuss, come on in. And if somebody wants to just see it and judge and do what they're going to do, I can't do anything about that. That bed was made before I ever walked into the bedroom, So I have to just be strong enough to leave it there. I guess another way of putting it is let people be wrong. It's fine. Nothing's, quantifiably true. And that's what's really exciting about life is finding the nuance and finding where the pieces don't fit and finding out where you can kind of gel and meld with each other's kind of broken, jagged parts. I guess all this to say, some wild shit happened in 2023, and I'm very excited to put the vast majority of this godforsaken year in my rearview mirror. But how about we leave all that philosophizing? Philosophizing? Is that a word? I don't know. How about we leave all that rumination to the side and shift into a little bit more fun mode? I did a quick little recap of all the books and movies and music and all the stuff that I engaged with over the year. I love to I write down every book I read. I write down every movie, every TV show. Not every song, because that would be wild, but I made a little bit of like a chart of everything I engaged with over the year, and I wanted to kind of list out some of my tops from each category. So in 2023, I read 72 books. I watched 113 movies and TV seasons combined, and then listened to some ungodly number of hours of music and podcasts. One little caveat of my top threes is that some of these choices weren't published or like released in 2023. They were just when I finally got around to them. A lot of them are, but not all of them. So just, take that as a grain of salt. My top three favorite books of the year are Marigold and Rose by Louise, I think it's Gluck. She passed away this year, and it was actually the first time I ever heard of her, and she's an unbelievable writer. I absolutely loved this book. It was beautiful, beautiful, sort of about the first year of these twins' lives from their perspective, and it's just gorgeous. I also really loved Heat 2 by Michael Mann. Heat is one of my all-time favorite movies, and the director wrote a novel sequel to it that continues the story and also does backstory, and it was incredible. It was so good. And my other top one was The Debutante by John Ronson. This is maybe a little bit of a cheat because it was like an Audible thing, but I think it was a book. I don't know. Just a really fascinating deep dive into the sort of like background players of the Oklahoma City bombing, and how the ties to these networks of white supremacy continue to affect elements of society to this day, and it's very, very spooky. A very special mention goes out to Batman '89. It was my favorite comic of the year. It absolutely ruled. I love this thing DC's done recently where they've been doing these like continuations of Batman movies and TV shows. As I've said on the show before, Batman 66 is my personal favorite Batman. Adam West will always be my Batman, and that comic is absolutely incredible. At times, some issues are even better than anything the show ever produced, and they did a similar thing with the Michael Keaton Batman. So they wrote a comic series about what happened to that Batman after Batman Returns, and they wrap up some stories that would have happened if Tim Burton had done a third Batman. They bring Robin in, Billy D. Williams gets to be Two-Face, all kinds of stuff, and it's just a ton of fun, and I absolutely loved it. My top three movies of the year were, number one was No One Will Save You. My friend Kyle just like out of the blue texted me and said, you have to watch this. Don't Google it. Don't look into it. Don't know what you're going into. Just watch it. And I asked, is it gross? And he said no. And then there was some gross stuff. So thank you, Kyle. But I fucking loved it. I don't want to talk anymore about it. It was tense. It was amazing. And I absolutely loved it. No One Will Save You. I think that might have been my favorite movie of the year, but it's debatable. I don't like to do like, this is my number one, number two. These are just like my tops, in no particular order. But yeah, check that one out. I really loved Good Luck to You, Leo Grande. A really, really sweet movie about intimacy, and I get like actually a little emotional even thinking about it, because it was a really, really beautiful movie. And when I watched it, it was a really, really special night. And I adored that movie. And my third is actually the latest Scream, Scream 6, RIP to that series, because the producers just fucked it up recently. They were on a really good trajectory. I thought the latest one was one of the best ones yet. You know, I think I've talked about this before in the past on the show. Scream is my favorite horror series. The worst Scream is still better than most of the good stuff out there, in my opinion. And I thought the new one absolutely ruled. And I'm pretty sad to see that the series is probably gonna either just die or take a really, really terrible turn. So yeah, R.I.P. Oh, and a special mention was getting to see Romeo plus Juliet in the theaters. When it originally came out in the 90s, I only saw it on like VHS and then DVD, and we got to go see it in the theaters this year, and it was incredible. So bombastic and big and loud, and just like really, really ratcheted up the intensity of that movie, and I loved it. My favorite podcast of the year, really loved The Ancients because I'm a ancient history nerd. Therapists in the Wild is likely one of the most like influential and helpful podcasts I might have ever listened to, let alone am currently. It's two therapists who are working their way week by week through the DBT skills program, and it's changed my life. I could not recommend it more. And then, of course, The Dream. I absolutely loved that show. The third season was, just got better from the last two. And I just love what they do with that show. I thought it was brilliant. A very special mention also goes out to Love Janessa, which is an incredible deep dive into the world of like catfishing. And there's this character on the internet she's essentially the most used photo for catfishers around the world, and these reporters go and try to find the real person, and it's unfucking believable. And last but not least, TV shows. Number one, Ted Lasso. I hadn't watched it, and then the last season was coming out, and my partner at the time recommended I watch it, and I did not watch a single episode without bursting into tears at some point. It was such a cathartic experience for me. I loved it. The finale was one of the best wrap-ups I've ever seen in a show. I cannot recommend that show enough. Ted Lasso, number one, no question. Funny enough, my other one is Shrinking, which is actually created by one of the guys who wrote and acted in Ted Lasso. Absolutely loved the first season. It was a ton of fun. And last but not least was the game show Actually has come to just dominate my life in recent weeks, and it's on the Dropout app, and I've watched like 6 seasons of it. It's basically a show where the host gives a series of incorrect statements about nerd culture, and contestants have to answer like Jeopardy. They have to start their answer with actually, and then correct what the statement is, and it's just magic. I absolutely love it, and I cannot stop watching it. But those are kind of that's really just scratching the surface of the stuff that I engaged with. I have ideas and sort of a plan to do something that I haven't done in a couple of years, which is to write like a full breakdown of everything I read and watched, and maybe some reviews and stuff like that. But I don't want to make any promises because that feels like a lot of work. So we'll see. Who knows? Other than that, yeah, take all those recommendations, run with them, and let me know if you like any of it. And now, last but not least, the big section of the show, the thing you've all been waiting for, questions and answers, holiday edition. I asked listeners to send in some holiday-themed questions, and y'all did not disappoint. Thank you so much for these questions. And before we dive in, if you have any questions, please don't forget you can always message me on Instagram or TikTok at friendlesspod, or email me at friendlesspod@gmail.com. But without further ado, here is your first question. What is the best gift you ever gave a friend? I wish so badly I had a better memory for this kind of stuff. The only gift that's coming to mind is like in elementary school when I bought my friend at the time like a squishy Kenny from South Park doll, and like drove it over to his house, and he was so excited. I will be the first to admit that I am dog shit when it comes to giving gifts. I overthink it. I get too anxious, and then I usually just like don't do it because it's just like I'll do it wrong, so I better not do it. Which obviously causes a whole other level of hurt. As an adult, I mostly gave alcohol, which in my current state, I feel not great about. But yeah, it's hard for me to remember gifts that I've given, which makes me think I probably haven't done a very good job. But if you have ever received a gift from me, let me know. Was it good? Did I do a good job? I can't remember. Please validate me. Next question is, what is your favorite friendship-related Christmas memory from childhood? This is another one that's like kind of vague. I every Christmas we would always go down to in Calgary. There's a place called Bowness Park, which I don't know if it's even open anymore. I remember a couple of years ago it got like really messed up because of floods and stuff. But when I was a kid, they would like the pond would freeze and everyone would go down and skate, and we'd always do that, especially on like Christmas Eve and stuff like that. And I do remember, it wouldn't be just the family; like we'd have friends who would do it. We had family friends and stuff like that. I also remember in high school going like midnight tobogganing with my girlfriend at the time, and that was really magic. I still think very, very fondly of that those nights when we would do that. There's like not many things more fun than sneaking out of the house at midnight and going tobogganing and then kissing. That's always going to be a good memory. This next question is a really fun one. So they ask, how do you decide which friends receive holiday gifts? Who receives a card? And who simply gets holiday wishes? And then they kind of followed up with saying, it's stressful for me to figure out each year. It's like the levels of friendship and closeness come into play. And I couldn't agree more. That's actually one of the elements of my own anxiety about like, basically, I usually make a pretty hard line, like I just don't get anyone gifts unless like maybe it's a Secret Santa thing or if we've talked about it or something like that. I'll usually just kind of carte blanche not buy anyone anything. And I can justify it by being like, for the comrades, don't buy. But it's more just my anxiety stops me from being sure if I'm like overstepping or understepping or if I'm getting the right thing. I'm always second guessing myself. I got a friend a gift just recently. They gave me this incredible gift of taking me to this like cold dip spa, and I got them a book because I was like, I don't know. But yeah, deciding for me, my usual go-to is just not buying gifts, which isn't necessarily good advice. I think it's more like communication. I think that's one of those things that you can like ask, if you find something, let's say you find something just out in the wild and you're like, oh, my friend would love this. I think, why not? Just buy it. Who doesn't love getting a gift? I think that's beautiful. But if it's causing anxiety for you, I think it's better to communicate with like, is this an expectation? Is this something you'd want? Is it going to put pressure on you if I buy you a gift? Those kinds of things. It always boils down to communication. That's gonna help everybody. So just ask and try your best to not stress out about being nice to people, right? There was actually another question that was similar to this, and they ask, who are family members who must get gifts, and ones that you can kind of deliberately skip, like, mom, dad, nieces, nephews, in-laws. And again, I haven't really traditionally spent a lot of Christmases with family. So I've often gotten a free pass. I'll either be with friends or something like that, or people who I don't know. And so, I'm not expected to get gifts, but I think at times, I think my rule of thumb would be like core family, parents, siblings. That's about it. Back in the day, I don't think I ever got like uncles presents, anything like that. Nowadays, like, in terms of going out, for instance, like this year, I'm finally going to spend Christmas with my family. And, I'm getting presents for my niece and nephew because they're kids. And for everyone else, my presence is my present. So that's kind of what that's got to be this year. Yeah, again, it's such a hard, because it's like family dynamics are tricky, right? And so my personal rule of thumb is core family, and even then, like, we're adults and I'm broke, so get over it. But at the same time too, if I can find something, and if it reminds me of that person, absolutely, I'm gonna, I as bad as I am at giving gifts, I also really do love giving gifts. So it's that funny, internal, there's two wolves in me. Both of them have anxiety. They're both terrified of everything, but one of them loves giving gifts. Let's see. Two more questions. Let's see. This next question is, what is your favorite cheesy holiday tradition, and what is your least favorite holiday tradition? So my favorite is, and again, I haven't done this in a long time, but when I was a kid, every Christmas Eve, without fail, my dad would put on National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and I love that movie and will always just revere it. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies. Actually, I'm just realizing I have not watched a Christmas movie yet this year, and I need to play some catch up because, yeah, I got to get in the mood here. But yeah, one of my favorite traditions would be watching Christmas Vacation on Christmas Eve. I also, as I mentioned before, I love going skating, frozen ponds, going out. It's all nippy cold, and you're all bundled up, and you just kind of skate around. Love all that stuff. Tobogganing, those kinds of things. All the things that I just don't have the energy for anymore. I just wish I had the energy of an 8-year-old again, but life happened, right? In terms of least favorite, I don't really I think my least favorite part of the holidays is just the pressure. It's not, it's just the tradition of feeling, these mounting expectations that don't necessarily feel surmountable. And so I think it's just the pressure of the holiday. I love holidays. I love Christmas. I love Halloween. I love these time periods where you get to be together and you get to celebrate and you get to show love openly, which is something that I wish we could do more year round, but these are the times we allot it. And so I think releasing that stress is really the part of it that I wish I could be better at, and I wish more people could allow themselves to do as well, I guess. And then there's one more question, and it's not holiday related, but I found it really fascinating. Someone on TikTok asked, what can you learn without outside influence? And I think this is an incredible question. And the more I sit with it, the more I realize I don't think you can. I don't think you can do anything without outside influence. There's no such thing as existing in a vacuum. And so I think when you're learning, the goal isn't to not be influenced. The goal is to find sources and to come to your own conclusions, right? And to not just take one source and say that's the truth, but to consider variables and consider nuance and come up with your own conclusions about that. I saw a thing recently that was saying, only the fool allows someone else to tell them who their enemy is. And I think that is sort of an element to this, where it's if you are deciding things based on what someone else has told you to feel, then you're not learning, right? You're just kind of regurgitating. But also on the flip side, I don't think it's possible to learn without outside influence, because I think that's what learning is being influenced by outside stimuli and then internalizing it and figuring it out kind of for yourself, right? But yeah, I feel like that question could go on for hours, because I think it's an incredible thought experiment, and that's just a scratching the surface thought. But thank you so much for asking that, because I think it's a really, really powerful exploration. But that's it. That's all I had planned. Thank you so much for listening through. This is an absolute blast. I love these little guy episodes. They're a ton of fun for me. I hope they're just as much fun for you. But with that, happy holidays. Happy New Year. I can't wait to get to all the interviews that I have on the backlog. Keep an eye out on the feed. I will update as I can. I'll be back, early January. I'm really excited to take a little break, do a little recharge, and come back in 2024 just ready to rock. In the meantime, if you can't get enough of Friend List, be sure to sign up for the Substack. It's a weekly update of currently it's 10 things I'm proud of for the week, as well as recommendations for books, movies, music to check out. There's an ongoing playlist for every month. It's tons of fun. It's free, I'm so proud of it, and I have so much fun writing it, and I really hope you check it out. All the links to that are in the show notes, along with I'm going to include all the information to all the media that I recommended in the episode. So if something piqued your eye, piqued your ear, I don't know what the saying is, check it out in all the show notes. But yeah, that's it. So one more time, I hope to catch you back here in the new year, but I'm not going to worry about that yet. And neither should you, because 2024 is then, and this is now. So for now, I'll just say I love you one more time, and I wish you well. Fun and safety, sweeties.